TD, Todd Dodge, we're moving up in the world, man. That sounded like some music from your days in 1983 at UT. They had that beat. That sounded familiar, didn't it?
That sounded a little bit like Port Arthur. That sounded a little home. That sounded like a little bit like my home.
Oh my God! That's everybody needs a little rhythm in their lives, a little jazz.
Got to.
It's if you don't have a little rhythm in your life, then you're doing it wrong.
Well, my listening. I played golf today, and I have on my Pandora. I have a little bit of Isley Brothers, and I have a little bit of Al Green. Have a little, So it's trying to get some rhythm in my life.
You've had a lot of rhythm in your life, and this is really cool that we're able to do this. We're expanding our horizons in stories inside the man cave, especially during football season. This is the 168th official episode, but the first of Inside the Fieldhouse with TD, that being Todd Dodge. And as you can tell by the top, sponsored by our good friends up there at manscaped.com. Every guy needs a little trim around the hedges, and that's where we go. Not that I know. I'm not inspecting. I'm just assuming. So before we get going, I really wanted to touch base about the Fieldhouse in general. A lot of people don't realize, I like to call it a sacred place because for coaches and players throughout your growing up, playing football to playing at Texas to coaching, the Fieldhouse now, it's not a memory. It's always going to be a part of you, but how do you describe your time and your life living basically in the Fieldhouse?
Well, my first memory of a Fieldhouse was back at Port Arthur at Thomas Jefferson High School, where the color of your skin didn't matter. We had a very diverse football team in 78, 79, 80. And once you stepped in those doors, it was about production. It wasn't about, what your mom and daddy did, how much money you made, what side of town you lived on. It's about what can you do for the Yellow Jackets. And so that's where it started for me. And that's kind of where, I learned that, that the coaches were like fathers, very heavy-handed fathers at times, and the teammates were very much like brothers. And so, and then as the years went on, there are just certain things when you spend that much time together in the game of football in our state means so much to so many people. We're all in it for a common goal, and that's on any Friday night or Saturday afternoon is to put our collective efforts together is to get a win. So you can't lie, and the Fieldhouse doesn't lie. The Fieldhouse always tells the truth, and you can't be a poser in the Fieldhouse, because your teammates know about you. They knew what you did during off season. You might all of a sudden, somebody might think that somebody's getting some preferential treatment, but everybody in the Fieldhouse knows they're not, because they didn't do much during the off season. Or you can always see those guys that grow in stature on the team because of what they did in that Fieldhouse during the off season.
The Fieldhouse, even for me, I didn't have. Junior high and high school was it for me, a very short time frame at Stephen F. Austin. But, it's all about bonds that are never broken. I just remember sitting around in the locker room, you were making fun of each other constantly. There's great stories, the weight room moments, I know it's a cliche, blood, sweat, and tears, but, man, you literally share everything. And even going to your last stop at Westlake, there must have been some phenomenal moments with some phenomenal people.
Well, there were, and it's where that a group of coaches, a group of football players all over the state of Texas. But you start two or 3 weeks ago on August the 8th, which was the second Monday in August, which that's kind of the that's kind of the drop dead day. That's when all high school football coaches and high school football players know that I hope I can make this thing last all the way until December. But for the next 3.5 months, I'm gonna spend more time with my teammates, and I'm gonna spend more time with my coaches, and that is family than I'm gonna spend with anybody else in my life. And so, yeah, the love that you have for one another. You talk about brothers. You love each other in the hard times, and you also fight like brothers also. And it's kind of one of those feelings of, I always tell our players, I said, you can talk about another guy on the team, but let somebody else talk about it. It's going to be a fight, and that's kind of the way you want your team to feel about each other.
Right.
We could have a disagreement on our team, and I can say something within the confines of the field house about one of my teammates. But if somebody on the outside says something about him, then we got a problem.
Yeah. Let's just keep it in the house, keep it in the field house, so to speak. That's right. Before we get on to some fun topics here, and including that three-peat state championship last year at Westlake, I want to bring up this graphic. This is kind of when you and I talked about this in the field house with TD. This kind of spawned some other ideas, and these are what you can see on stories inside the man cave. Of course, Coach Dodge right there on the far left. He hadn't aged a bit at all. It'll be about twice a month throughout football season. Then we have a devoted female Longhorn fan. Coach, I think Tess, it's Tuesdays with Tess. She knows as much about college football, specifically the Longhorns, as you and I. It's crazy. And then big Stevie Lee.
Yeah.
It's going to be the pass rush with big Stevie Lee.
Good.
And we'll start that later. But this is going to be a fun fall. Every football season's fun. But what makes this more fun is really talking. Always have a good time talking with you. But first off, I gotta bring it up. Your boy Sam, his preseason in the NFL. I mean, I look at him, TD, and I still see his first year when he was starting at Westlake. Maybe because that's what happens when we get older. But I still see him as that bright-eyed sophomore. I mean, is that normal?
Yeah, and it's kind of I see the same thing, and it's funny that you mentioned that because I talked to him after his first preseason game when he did so well. I think he was 10 of 11, and I said, "Great job. How's everybody treating CJ? His new wife, Cammy Jo. I wanted to know how everybody and how the other wives were treating her, and he said great. And but he's just it's back to when like he was a sophomore in high school, and he's just grinding into getting better every day. And the one thing that I'll tell you about Sam, and it doesn't surprise me that what he's doing right now is that sometimes just people in general think that human beings and athletes and whatever you choose to do in life is people don't believe in improvement. And it's like, well, he didn't do it in this situation, so he's not going to do it here. Well, guess what? When he was a sophomore in high school, he made sophomore mistakes. The next year, he was the player of the year in the state of Texas. The next year, he went through some injuries, and the next year, he's a freshman at the University of Texas, and he takes Texas to great things. And now he's in the pros, and he has a rookie season, and now he's it's just it drives me crazy sometimes that people, when they say things about people like Sam, is like, oh well, he doesn't have a very strong arm, or he's not very accurate. God almighty, what are y'all looking at? I mean,
right.
I mean, it's like sometimes someone says that, and it's like, wow, that's the narrative for the rest of his life, which I completely, disagree with those type. But
100%.
What he's doing right now, and I'm so proud of him. He's making a real case to be the number 2. With the Colts, or he's making a real case to be a number 2 with someone else. But
right.
he, when I talk to him, you can just see you're just talking to a professional. He's all about it. His body, he's 6'2.5". He's 200 and about 18 pounds right now. He's trim. He looks great, and it doesn't surprise me. He's acting like a professional.
It's fun to watch. It is fun to watch, but he still. When people say things like that, I've heard it. Everybody's, there's that criticism. It's the same thing when you have a prospect that's going through the draft. I mean, look at what Tom Brady looked like when he went to the draft.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think he would be who he is, or hand size on a ball.
Yeah.
Or even Vince Young, for that matter.
Right.
Criticism there, and it's just if you can ball, you can ball.
That's right.
And it's but Sam really vaulted. You developed him and your coaching staff, and it really set the tone for when you actually decided it was time. Probably the best moment ever where Westlake is making some history right now from the historical sense of Texas high school football. They have a great chance to four-peat, and that hasn't been done at 6A.
No,
I don't think it's been. Has it been done at 5A?
Yes. But not at the 6A level. Okay.
It is unreal. And through our conversation, and I want to pull this graphic up. And this is what makes last year. I don't think a lot of people, people see the greatness that was that run. But when I bring these stats up from last year, this is what blows me away. When you look at both sides of the ball. And I'm a big stats nerd, but I want to pull this part off right here. Just look at defense for all, Cade, great QB, offense on point. But those defensive numbers, I don't think enough people discuss that.
Yeah.
Ever. So when you see that as you saw this as a possibility, but what are people missing out on outside of the three-peat of that program you developed?
I don't know if anybody's missing on it or not. It's just really mind-boggling when you have last year's team had the most points that's ever been scored at the 6A level in a season. It's 908 points. And in the same season, the fewest given up by a team. So, so what they ask you to do when the season starts and when a game starts is to go out and score more points than the other team does. I think that's and then they also ask you to be productive in, offense and defense. And so, as we went through the season, I'll just, go through our kickoff team. We had a guy named Charlie Barnett, and he's kicking at Army now. Well, Charlie, in 14 of our 16 ball games, he kicks out of the back of the end zone over 90% in every single one of those games. So that's one thing is we don't have to worry a whole lot about anyone ever getting any traction in the kickoff team. We only punted in the entire season. We only punted 12 times the entire year.
Wow.
So you don't have to worry about getting one blocked a whole lot. We blocked 13 kicks during the season, 3 against Vandergrift in the 4th round of the playoffs. So not only was offensively and defensively is also the kicking game. Our extra point guy, we never left an extra point off the field, off the board. Mark Sehay was 100% on all extra points. And then offensively, we scored on 14 of the first 16 games. 14 out of 16 games, we scored on the first possession of the game and the first possession of the second half. And then, of course, defensively, we held our opponents to 8.8 points a game over 16 games in the year 2022. We had, 51 quarterback sacks, but even more important than that, is we never had anybody, we had we gave up one opening touchdown the entire game. So we were starting out hot. We had 14 of 16 games where we scored on the first possession, and we had 15 of 16 games where the other team did not score on the first possession.
That's mind-blowing. I mean, coaches, I still think people undervalue special teams.
Right.
And to this date, and I still don't understand why that is an undervalue. Now, obviously, at a place like Texas, Oklahoma, Westlake, Lake Travis, Southlake Carroll, Arlington Martin, those programs, special teams is of high importance. But do you feel like, it sounds like you guys stress your special teams more than anything. They think Todd Dodge is the quarterback guru, but have you always been that way, to emphasize special teams?
Absolutely. It's part of our game day expectations. You got to win the kicking game for until the breaks are made. The thing people don't realize, people always want to get enamored with quarterbacks. They want to get enamored with edge rushers. They want to get enamored with lockdown corners. They want to get enamored with, big time receivers and maybe a running back. Well, all I said was about 5 positions. It's, this is the ultimate team game. And when people think about, I'm looking at your graphic here, and we scored 56.8 points a game. Well, people don't realize, they think, well, it says offense by it. But that was our football team that averaged 56.8 points a game. It doesn't, when a game is over with, they don't put up their Westlake offense 56, so-and-so's defense so much. It's Westlake versus whoever you played. But it was our football team and our special team. So let me just go through a little scenario that we go through all the time in the Fieldhouse. It's kickoff to the opponent. All right. So the opponent, we kick off, and Charlie kicks it 95% of the time. Last year, he kicked it out of the back of the end zone. Okay. So the other team is starting on the 25-yard line, and the other team's big time kick returner did not touch it. Okay. The defense forces a 3-and-out to open the game. That's the goal. 3-and-out. The opponent punts. The offense gets the ball at the 50-yard line. Well, you know what? We could be pretty dangerous the 50-yard line. And the offense goes in and scores to cash in for everybody's efforts. You just went kicking game, defense, offense. Within 2 minutes to go in the game, you're up 7-0. And that's kind of what we always talk to our kids about is that deal is just get into that feeding frenzy where kick off the back of the end zone, defense 3-and-out. If you don't get a 3-and-out, at least keep them inside the 50-yard line, and offense go cash in for everybody.
It worked.
Yeah.
And nobody's perfect. It's never going to execute, perfectly. But I remember, what was it, the San Angelo coaching clinic, and it's still, I don't know why I remember this, like 98, Coach Vandegrift, all that group, and I forgot who else was there, but there was a seminar on special teams. This was 98.
Mm-hmm.
They were talking about, the game turns the tides when you block punts.
Yes.
All the time. And so I'm just curious, as being a modern era coach, how much do you spend on special teams?
Well, we open up practice every day with special teams. The first thing we do every day at Westlake, and I know Tony's still doing the same thing, is the very untimed 5-minute period is we kick field goals and extra points versus live defensive rush. And we ended on making that period at least 3 27-yarders in a row. And And that doesn't sound like much, but we'll go. But we lost the state championship on a 27-yard field goal, a missed 27-yard field goal in 2015. So we hope that will never happen again. So we start with PAT and field goal, and then periods 1, 2, and 3. The first 3 periods of the day are all kicking game. So we start with kicking game, and then so that's Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday, that's 3 periods. Wednesday it's 5 periods, and then Thursday it's probably 65% of the entire practice is kicking game. So yeah, we spend a lot of time on it.
That's impressive. By any chance, when you were growing up in Garrison, Texas, I can't remember how the story goes, but this is kind of like our tie-in. I leave here, go to Stephen F. Austin, knew nothing about East Texas. Fast forward to 06 or 04, 05 when I came back to East Texas, covered the mighty John Outlaw and the Lufkin Panthers, and that's where you and I connected, all those great Lufkin Southlake Carroll matchups. Then I find out your mom was living in Nacogdoches, and little did I know you have obviously deeply rooted to East Texas, Garrison, Texas. Your dad was a preacher, right?
Right.
So Garrison Bulldogs, a great I think a 2A program.
Right. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about, because East Texas is still special to you, I would imagine.
Yes, it is. Yeah, East Texas, Southeast Texas is where I grew up. I mean, Garrison was probably the first place that I ever really remember living. I lived in some other place before then, but I was in first grade, and my mom was a third grade teacher. My dad was the preacher at the First Methodist Church in Garrison, which still to this day only has about 800 people in it. Okay, but Garrison Bulldog football has been since this was 1969 is when I got my first indoctrination into the great game of high school football in the state of Texas. Is I would go hang around at the practice because I was bored from sitting in my mom's third grade class, after school. And so I would wander out to the football field and I'd start shagging balls, and I'd pick stuff up for them and bring the ball back to them. And, if there was a missed or a field goal, wherever the football was, I'd go get it and take it back to the coach or the quarterback. And after 2 or 3 weeks of that, the coach said, "Hey, you mind coming with us to the games?" And, and so I was at home games, and then I got to travel on the bus for away games. And so I was the official ball boy of the Garrison Bulldogs. And that's where I just fell in love with football. And that's where it started for me.
It's a different level out in East Texas, different environment, culture's different. It's a great place for high school football. And now your coach, when you left Garrison to go to Port Arthur, Thomas Jefferson High School, Ronnie Thompson was the head coach, correct?
Right.
And then you left home to go play in what turned out to be a Texas high school state power.
Yep.
How did that all go down?
Well, when we moved to Port Arthur when I was in 7th grade, and we always knew that sometime during my high school days that if my dad got transferred, like it seemed like we did every 3 or 4 years, that we'd figure something out, maybe let me stay. And so, of course, Port Arthur was just the absolute best thing that ever happened to me. Good old hard-nosed, blue-collar refinery town. A lot of Cajun persuasion there. Just good, hard-working, good folks. And I was the beneficiary of playing for a guy named Ronnie Thompson that came home to his hometown, and he had a vision on throwing the football. And so when I was a sophomore, about 4 games into my sophomore year, he had what we call the 1978 youth movement in Port Arthur, Texas. He pretty much, the season wasn't looking good for our team in his first year. And so about the last 6 or 7 games of the season, we had 12 sophomores starting for our high school team.
That's back then. That's unheard of.
Yeah, and so that was the nucleus by the team that went. So we went 1-9 when we were sophomores, and we were 14-1 when we were seniors, and that was Ronnie's deal. But but mom and dad moved when I was the summer before my junior year, and I had a family that took out guardianship on me, and that's where the brotherhood really comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Richard Rice, who was one of my offensive linemen. He was a year older than me. He played offensive line at McNeese State back in the early 80s. He was a really good player. But I moved in with him and his mom and dad, and they took out guardianship on me. And so for the next 2 years, really, Ronnie Thompson, my high school football coach, was like my father. He was the guy that when I got out of line, he got me back in line. He was the one. He was the shot caller in my life.
Coaches are special.
Yep.
Just like the Fieldhouse, and I owe a lot to mine. I told this story. I think I've told you when my dad passed away in '86. It was a week before my 13th birthday. All of a sudden, 3 or 4 months later, I had coaches in my life like on a level that most don't.
Yeah.
And if it weren't for them, there's no way I would have became.
Yeah.
I would have gone a different direction. There's no doubt in my mind. So before we wrap it up, you are burnt orange through and through. And we'll have some of your Longhorn stories on episodes to come.
Yeah.
But your thoughts, I know you and I both would like to correct a few things, narratives every year that involve Texas. It's just, it's part of it, though. That's what makes that program so special.
Right.
Fans are passionate, sometimes unrealistic expectations, but you see Sarkisian, I think he's the guy. I really do. What you see now is a much deeper team, but when you see as much youth in this modern era of football, can a team like that with that much youth have the success that everybody wants?
Well, probably not what everybody wants in Austin, Texas this year, but I believe Steve Sarkisian's a fantastic coach. Yeah. I've always been a fan of his as a play caller. I think he's got a really good staff. Obviously, they got talent on that team through recruiting and through the portal.
Yeah.
Sean, I think it's pretty simple right now. I think right now it's everybody that's on that roster, when they start the season, is they need to put a big old chip right on their shoulder. Yep. And they need to quit living an entitled life and put a chip on their shoulder and start getting pissed off about what people say about them all over the state of Texas and prove people wrong. And they're talented enough to do it. And stay in the moment. And, one of the things that I think has been the problem is that, a lot of times we show up against the big time teams. We haven't beat Oklahoma here. We played really well against Oklahoma, really well against so-and-so, real well against LSU that won the national championship a few years ago, and then end up getting beat by somebody you shouldn't get beat against. You've got to win those games. You got to quit disrespecting the opponent and start, and that's, people always say, what's the problem? Well, win the games you're supposed to win. Right now, if you look at the deal, I think Texas can win 8 games this year. That's
what I'm going for.
That's my little. It don't matter. Shit, don't know shit from Shinola about nothing. But but I think 8 wins would be good. And then, and I think that's very doable. But you got to stay in the moment, and it just drives me crazy sometimes to see them play, like against an Oklahoma, and win or play really well against a really good team, and then turn around the next week and get beat by someone you have no business getting beat by. And I just think that's the key: is stay in the moment. And make sure everybody understands that it's everybody's Super Bowl when they play the University of Texas.
That's right.
And you better meet it with that kind of passion. So You know, I am fired up for the start of football season for everybody all over the great state. High school football, pro football, the Horns. You know, Elizabeth and I are going to travel here in a few weeks. We're going to go to Clemson to see Cade play.
Awesome.
And looking forward to that. And so, but the one thing that everybody's talking about, Texas playing Alabama. Hell, that ain't a real good matchup right now. I mean that's Texas be an underdog, needs to go in an underdog attitude and give them hell. But
I agree.
All of our fan base doesn't need to think that the world is ended just because we lost to Alabama or something like that, because we may end up upsetting them. But no, I think
it's possible.
Absolutely. And so I think the biggest thing is that, man, you got to go beat the people you got to beat. And there's a whole lot of people on Texas schedule that they should beat. And there's 3 or 4 of them that probably a toss up. And there's a couple of them. I don't see a couple of them. I see one of them that were a major underdog, and that's Alabama. Everybody else, probably a little underdog. And then there's about 8 of them on there you ought to win.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. But regardless, man, this is the best time of year. And I love it for you. You get to be a fan now and go see all your former players, your son, Riley at Southlake Carroll. You're about to have another grandchild.
Yep.
Your daughter Molly and her husband. That Dodge family. It's going to be hard to keep up with when they reach the high school age. I mean,
well, it'll be a blink of your eye, because I can. I've got my oldest grandson is in 1st grade, and so it seems like I started coaching at Westlake 8 years ago. Sam Ellinger was a 15-year-old, sophomore. Well, 8 years from now, Tate Riley Dodge is going to be entering high school. I mean, that's crazy. And that's when old Pawpaw's really going to be ratcheting things up.
You're going to be his recruiting coordinator.
Oh man, I will be fired up about a whole lot of stuff.
Man, I'm looking forward to all the pictures with you and Elizabeth traveling, on Facebook, whatnot, social media platforms. Man, it's fun to see. Just fun to see all you guys around the extended grandkids. It's what it's all about,
right?
And it's been fun. It's nothing. I say retired, but you really haven't retired. It's still in your life, and it always will. Always.
No, I'm still. I've still got a few things in the football world scratching the itch, and I just get, I'm just getting a chance to go support, my biological son, who's the coach of the 3rd ranked team in the state, and another guy that I feel like is a son to me, who is the head coach of the Westlake Chaparrals, who's the 1st ranked team in the state. That's a pretty cool gig right now.
It's a great gig. You're the patriarch, Tony. He's going to do great things.
Absolutely. I'm so excited for him.
If anyone ever has a chance, he just spoke at our luncheon with the Greater Austin Sports Foundation, and he and Jamal Finner, they both did a great job. But Tony just has a conviction. I don't know. It's like, wow, I wanted to hear more.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty funny guy when he lets it loose.
Yeah. He does. He's going to do awesome. I'm so proud of him.
Oh my God. Well, TD, man, this is going to be fun. And when we'll get another week or two, we'll be installment number 2. We got to navigate around this busier schedule of retirement. That's what we're going to call it. Because I think you're busier now.
Well, I have some people in my life that tell me that I am, but I don't think so. I would say nay to that. Now, I have been busier than I thought I would, but I can tell you right now, at about 10:30 this morning, I was teeing it up. I haven't done that in the last 36 years on a Tuesday.
You were getting out of what time did you tee off? 9 in the morning?
About 10:30 this morning over at great Lighthouse Country Club in Kingsland, Texas.
The beautiful Texas Hill Country.
That's right.
The gym, that is.
The gym.
I don't know what's the deal with my background here. There it is. We're back. We're back.
Yeah, I'll put a plug in for the Kingsland, a nice municipal golf course in Kingsland, Texas, the Lighthouse.
Hey, severely underrated.
Maybe they'll cut a little bit off my next green fee. Yeah.
And how does a retired Texas high school coaching great? I mean, come on, cut the guy a deal. You know, just show him your 7 rings.
Oh, we don't do that.
Well, we've got to get some Rocky Mountain Kool-Aid, and those dimpled balls together sometime. We can line our schedules, but until then, we'll plan our next installment of this.
Sounds good, brother.
I can't wait. For TD and the OG Man Cave boys, that being Hardball Hards, Big Mike, and Coach Mo, we out.
All right.
Oh, yeah.